What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we have our final Power 4 breakdown. It is Stanford. If you like this content, please check out all the other 68 videos so far. Leave a like, subscribe. A comment helps too. I say that, but we will do Oregon State. We'll do Washington State. We'll probably take G5 teams by request. If you have those, let us know. For Stanford, in these previews, we start with last year, then we will go forward into the roster this year, additions, player departures, whatever it may be, schedule, and talk about what to expect. So with Stanford, that begins with their efficiency metrics for last season, and it was not a pretty season for Stanford. They finished outside the top 100 in total offense and defense. Only redeeming qualities for this team, their pass blocking unit was inside the top 100. Their pass rush was definitely a strength at 51st, and their special teams came in 5th overall. Otherwise, this was kind of a unit that struggled across the board. Offense, defense, really just their special teams, and the occasional big play from a receiver, a position that ended up getting hurt. But they did have Alec Manor drafted. A lot of their receivers are on other teams now, like Emmett Mosley's on Texas. But overall, this unit still struggled to get to a position where they're year over year developing players, having success. And that's how you end up with a 3-9 record and a head coach that's fired. Now, there's a little bit of nuance to the firing situation. You have Troy Taylor coming in, actually recruiting fairly well, but then very late into the cycle, late winter, early spring, an investigation comes out of bullying, and he's fired. Now, they go out and they bring in Andrew Luck as their AD. He goes out and he brings in his old friend Frank Reich as head coach. Last time we saw Frank Reich, he was coaching the Carolina Panthers in a disaster season. But, I mean, I'm not really sure what to expect. Everything coming out of Stanford suggests that they're going to make a full coaching search next year, which is not exactly the rhetoric I would want to hear if I was Frank Reich. Kind of makes it sound like unless he vastly outperforms expectations, they're going to be going into next year searching for another new head coach. So what does this even mean for this season if that's where we stand? They have a new OC, and Nate Byam. He was the tight ends coach last year. He's now been promoted. 36 years old. He's never fully coordinated an offense. We did see him as co-OC of Albany in 2022. Defensive coordinator Bobby April is back. He took this job in 23. He previously coached linebackers for Wisconsin, but they've actually had quite a bit of defensive talent, a few 4-stars, and they keep finishing outside the top 100. So what does he mean? I'm not really sure what to expect from Stanford. And it's not that the expectations were high to begin with. I mean, this is a team that went 3-9 last year. Their only wins came against Cal Poly, Syracuse by 2 points, and Louisville by 3 points. Now, they did have a number of single-digit losses, including you go down towards the end of the season, they lost by single digits to Wake Forest, Cal, and San Jose State. But, I mean, this is not a team with real expectations this season as we take a look at what's happening with the coaching staff. But talent acquisition, we can take a glimpse. Stanford has actually been a pretty good recruiting team in the ACC. They have a strong history. They have players like Andrew Luck, Christian McCaffrey that have come through the doors. And the academics are solid, so you will see them bring in occasional 4-stars. They just need to actually have a coaching staff that can coax the most out of them, which we haven't seen for quite a while with Stanford. Their retention is good, and you see this with a lot of the academic schools. They're usually retaining like 85-90% of their classes, and they've been doing that through this coaching turmoil that they've had this season. Now, the recruiting did drop off. It went from 31st to 56th. That's not a huge surprise considering what's going on there. Transfers, this is a hard school to get into, so their academic calendar, things limit them. The last 3 seasons, they've been 75th, 128th, and 54th. But overall, I mean, Stanford has a pretty solid talent base compared to what some other teams are doing in this conference. Let's take a look at this roster and what to expect for this season with Stanford. Here's our 2 deep depth chart. This is available in the Discord below. what we are trying to do is project the depth chart and backups. We have the players right here, transfers listed in yellow, what year they are in school to the right, how many snaps they played the last 2 years, what recruit they were in terms of a star, and then a value score. This value score looks first at your recruiting, and then the more snaps you played, the less it looks at recruiting, the more it looks at on-field play, trying to give an overall score for what to expect this year. 50 flat would be your average player. So Stanford brings in a couple transfers at QB, Ben Gulbranson and Dylan Rizek. Gulbranson comes from Oregon State. He's been there for a long time. He's 6'3", 218. He has started at various points through 5 years. He has a completion percentage of 62%, 7.4 yards per pass attempt, 15 touchdowns, 10 picks, 12 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays. Not going to run a lot. Average pressure to sack ratio. Basically everything across the board with Gulbranson has been about average. The big concern you have is he's lost multiple quarterback battles, including last year. So is there really a ceiling to him? The answer is probably no. With Rizek, he's at least younger. He's a redshirt sophomore from UCF. We did see him make a few starts last year, 4 to be exact. He's 6'2", 205, completed 61.5% of his passes for 7.7 yards per attempt, 5 scores, 2 picks, 4 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays. Also not a runner. Pressure to sack ratio a little higher for him, but he's also a younger player. That would expect to get better. Kind of the wild card in the room is also former 4-star Elijah Brown, who played 89 snaps last year. But man, I mean, thrown into the fire right away as a freshman. His pressure to sack ratio was 27%. He took 8 sacks. Passing numbers were awful. What did we expect was going to happen with Brown? So I hope that he gets another chance and can be put in a situation where there's a little more success systemically for him. But I mean, man, this is a quarterback log jam. I'm not sure any of the players really are all that impressive. And Brown probably is my favorite just because it's 4-star recruiting caliber. But I mean, man, what a bad situation for him to be thrust in last year. From there, we go to the running back position. They're returning a lot. Their leading rusher was actually quarterback Ashton Daniels last year, who's now with a different program. Their best running back is sophomore 3-star Micah Ford. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry last year on 309 yards. Caught 15 balls, but he is 6 feet, 220 pounds. The offense was just so inept last year that none of these players were very efficient. Not a single one even reached 3.0 yards after contact per attempt, at least among the guys that had a solid sample. Cole Tab is also back. He played 122 snaps. Chris Davis Jr. is also back. He played 201. Cedric Irvin played 159. All of them are former 3-stars. So it's kind of just this nasty committee all around. Ford, I think, is the best chance to lead the backfield. But if I was ranking them, I would put Tab second. He's a sophomore. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry, had 2 catches, 5'8", 200 pounds. Davis, I would put third. He had 5.3 yards per carry and 3 catches. He's 5'10", 195 pounds. And then I would probably put Irving fourth. He only had 69 yards last year, 3.8 yards per carry. Just not a lot of good quality talent here. They did add a transfer, Tuna Alta here from Eastern Washington. He was below average in the FCS. So I'm just not really putting a lot of stock in this running back unit. If you do see a breakout, I think it's from Ford, who showed the most. A situational flash here and there is pretty solid from him. At wide receiver, I'm surprised they weren't better in the pass game, but they basically had a couple running backs playing QB last year. So you did not see the maximization of Alec Manor. Emmett Mosley's on Texas. Tiger Bachmeier's on BYU. Ismail Ceesay's on Arkansas. I mean, you got a lot of players that are in the NFL or on high-profile rosters. They do add a couple transfers. CJ Williams comes in from Wisconsin. David Pantalis comes in from Yale. Jordan Onavugu comes in from Colorado. And Caden High from South Carolina State. Williams is a former 4-star, played with USC originally, spent the last 2 years with Wisconsin. He's 6'1", 205 pounds. Never quite lived up to his recruitment. He caught 15 balls for 248 yards last year. That's 1.1 yards per route, well below average. Pantelis, the Ivy League transfer, is 5'11", 195. He did catch 61 balls for 910 yards out there, but it took him a little while to break out. We don't like players entering the final years of college finally breaking out, but probably going to play in the slot. 2.8 yards per route. There's just not a lot of competition in his way. Onavugu, the Colorado three-star, he has one catch so far. He's now a redshirt sophomore at 6'2", 210 pounds. High comes in from South Carolina State. He had 62 catches for 905 yards. Slot receiver as well with 2.33 yards per route. I mean, these FCS transfers are probably going to have to play a little bit because there's such little production. They only have one returning catch from last year, and that was from former walk-on Marcus Brown, who's not really a threat to contribute. The only other incumbent that's semi-interesting is Bryce Farrell, 5'11", 175. He's been with Stanford since 2020, and he actually has 39 catches for 323 yards. It's just weird. One season he plays not at all. The next season he plays a fair amount. Those catches and yards all came in 2 seasons, and we're now entering year 5. Hasn't been efficient with him, but he's at least someone who's played a little bit. But honestly, the true ceiling of the position, like some of the other positions, likely comes down to 4-star freshman John Anthony Hall. They get a 4-star once in a while. This is one of them. They have shown a willingness to play these guys, at least under the previous regime. They need them to play right away. They might even need to play 3-star freshman Liam Thorpe. There's just almost no one on this roster that has any experience, at least with Stanford. So hard to see this unit being the same as last year. It's probably a little bit worse. Tight end, maybe they go to more 12 personnel. Reich certainly has done that in the past. And I say that because their tight end room is pretty strong. 4-star senior Sam Roush is back. 68 catches for 623 yards over the last 2 years. He's 6'5", 260, an elite blocker, and he's played over 1,700 snaps. That's where you start. You also get back Benji Blackburn, who played 186 snaps as a freshman. 6'6", 260, very good blocker. Only 3 catches, but he can be used as sort of your 6th offensive lineman. And they bring in Brendan Doyle from Memphis, who's 6'4", 255. Not really efficient, really bad blocker, but he did catch 13 balls, which was kind of moderately efficient with Memphis. So we'll see. There's at least options at tight end that you sort of lack at receiver. The offensive line loses 2 full-time starters, but that's not really saying much. This was probably the worst offensive line in the P4 last year. None of their players even reached average place, and now I hope with another year in the program, some of them can. Left tackle Khalil House is back. And, I mean, he was forced into the fire as a freshman last year. This kind of is what it is. He played 643 snaps, not a good run blocker, and he allowed 30 pressures. But, I mean, you're playing a 3-star freshman. What did you expect was going to happen? They also get back Fisher Anderson at tackle. He only played 12 snaps last year. That's part of the reason some of these young players were forced into the fire. But he played 323 in 2023. He is a former 4-star. He was a little below average, allowed 17 pressures on that limited role. But, I mean, both of them probably play because your transfers are really underwhelming. You bring in Nicky Prongos from UCLA and Kai Greer from Georgia Tech. Greer is a redshirt freshman. He hasn't played yet. No snaps. Prongos is a former walk-on, and, man, has he played like it. He is 6'7", 310 pounds, which is this enticing frame. Can we potentially coach him up? The answer has been no. He was a horrible run blocker, and he allowed 21 pressures. Now, none of them turned into sacks. Sometimes sacks are more of a quarterback stat than an offensive line stat. Ethan Garbers did a decent job evading pressure, and Prongos was definitely someone that allowed it. So, I mean, we're just not talking about real talent among the transfer group. I'd rather play former 4-stars like Fisher Anderson and House, who's at least a freshman. Prongos at this point has never played well, and he's been in college for a while. At guard, they do have a couple returners. Jack Lyrer, he comes back after 693 snaps last year. Primarily played left guard, but he's played tackle at times too. He was actually an average run blocker and a decent pass blocker, 20 pressures and only 4 sacks allowed. That was among the better marks for the offensive line last year. At right guard, Simeon Pale returns. He's played 1,300 snaps the last 2 years. And he did improve last year a little bit, only was slightly below average, allowed 23 pressures and 1 sack, not the best run blocker, but he did show growth. Center's probably going to be a transfer. Nathan Mejia comes in from Sacramento State. Nick Fadig comes in from Texas Tech. Mejia, he missed last season, but he did play 2 years at center in the FCS before that, only allowed 8 pressures in 2023. Fadig is a redshirt sophomore, only played 32 snaps with Texas Tech, but most of those came at guard. He still could be an option across the interior. And from there, I mean, the depth gets young fast. Zyron Brown, Josh Williams, inexperienced, young. There is not a lot of depth here. It would be very difficult for this team to be worse on the offensive line, especially considering they're bringing back 3 starters and some of their transfers are okay. But man, this is not going to be an average offensive line. I think at best you're hoping for something around the top 100, which that's about where they were last year, a little bit below that. Defensive line. They lose one of their elite recruits, David Bailey. For some reason, the former 4-star David Bailey actually trailed Tavarua, Tafiti, and Ernest Cooper in snaps off the edge. They're both 4-stars as well, so it was kind of a deep unit. But Bailey was supposed to be this crown jewel that never got on the field that much. So, I mean, Bobby April's actually been working with a lot of 4-star defensive linemen. I'm just a little confused why this unit had a pass rush 51st, but run defense 92nd. How are they not a little better? Anyway, let's talk about the returners. Tafiti, he's a former 4-star, has over 1,000 snaps the last 2 years, 35 pressures, 8 sacks. Pretty good run defender as well. At 240, he's a good place to start. Cooper's another former 4-star. Started last year for the first time and posted pretty good metrics. He had 11 pressures, good run defense numbers at 245. Definitely not quite as effective as Tafiti. And then they do bring back 4-star Wilfredo Abar, who played just 6 games last year, 207 snaps, but he was a little banged up. He's 260, has 11 QB pressures. Run defense numbers are actually a little below average because of 4 missed tackles. But right away, that's 3 4-stars. And from there, they have a sophomore 4-star and Dylan Stevenson, who played just 10 snaps last year. This unit has not quite lived up to the potential, but the talent is undeniable. That's 4 4-stars off the edge. We need to start coaxing better talent out of these players. Inside, they lose only Tobin Phillips. He was below average anyway, so not much to say there. Anthony Franklin led the position with 439 snaps. He now has over 1,300 the last 3 years combined. Last year, good run defender, which is surprising. He's only 285, but pass rushing, not his strength. He only had 10 pressures last year after he had 26 in 2023, so took a step back there. Zach Roll also played 410 snaps. He's 280. He was around average in the run game, but also lagged as a pass rusher. Only 7 QB hurries, no hits, no sacks. From there, Zach Bucky played 154 snaps. Braden Marcio Olakina played 196. It's just not a very good unit behind your top guys, and that still is a very underwhelming unit. Even Omar Staples, 97 snaps. Clay Patterson, 103. Patterson originally came in from Yale, but was unable to handle the ACC, so he didn't play a ton. The edge group is much better than the interior, but I'm not sure this is an average defensive line either way. At best, I think you're hoping for something slightly inside the top 100. At linebacker, they lose Gathan Bernadelle and Tristan Sinclair. Both were 2 of the better starters for this Stanford defense last year. So Josiah Galvin has a lot to replace. He played 126 snaps last year. He's originally a Northern Iowa transfer, and he actually looked good when he was out there briefly, and he was good in the FCS, but still big shoes to fill. From there, they bring in Hunter Barth from Cal and Zach Johnson from Idaho. Barth made 4 starts, very good run defense numbers, but a 92% completion percentage into his coverage leaves a lot to be desired. Johnson was kind of the same thing, and that was in the FCS. He had an 88% completion percentage allowed. With Johnson, at least, he was an All-American freshman in the FCS, so there's maybe some growth there. If, for whatever reason, they can't get on the field, your other depth pieces are Sam Mattingly and Matt Rose, both 3-star sophomores. Neither particularly good. Rose did have nearly 200 snaps, but he was below average. Linebacker could be about stagnant, I think, at best, because Sinclair and Bernadelle were pretty good. Let's go to defensive back, where they're returning most of this unit. The best player, I think, is their slot corner, Colin Wright, who is a 2-year starter. He's been moving in and out of the slot. He allowed a 60% completion percentage for 379 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks, and 5 PBUs. If you could clean up a couple touchdowns and big plays, Wright would be a much better corner in terms of the grade you see on the screen. On the boundary, I think one spot goes to Brandon Nicholson, who played 423 snaps, started 5 games immediately as a freshman, and he was pretty decent in coverage, only a 68% completion for 312 yards. He needs to clean up some of the run defense stuff. But those are two good places to start. And then your final boundary corner is probably going to be a transfer. You bring in Jordan Washington from Dartmouth, Sam Neely from Wake Forest, and Braylon Thompson from Yale. Neely hasn't played yet. He's a 3-star. He's a redshirt freshman, no snaps. Washington started the last 2 years with Dartmouth. Good run defender, only allowed a 58% completion. Had 15 PBUs, but now needs to bring that to the ACC. And then finally, Thompson, coming over from Yale. He was a bit more up and down, slightly above average, but still projects more as a rotational corner. As far as some of the other incumbents, Aaron Morris, Cam Richardson, Darius Davis are most likely. All of them were a little below average in the snaps they played last year. And for some of these guys, it was quite a bit. Morris played 379, Richardson 216. Davis only had 83, but it is what it is. This corner unit should be a little better at worst. Safety is kind of the strength of your secondary with returners Scotty Edwards and Mitch Liegber back. Edwards is a 2-year starter, above average in both. Was second on the team with 80 tackles last year, had a 69% completion percentage allowed. Liegber is also a 2-year starter, better in the run game, struggled a little bit more in coverage, but still only a 67% completion percentage. He was 4th on the team in tackles with 54, so that's solid. For depth, Jay Green and Jalen Day-Sumlin are back. Sumlin actually was pretty impressive as a true freshman. He started the finale against San Jose State as well, only allowed 5 catches all year. It would be hard for the secondary to be worse outside a catastrophic injury or something like that. I mean, this unit just wasn't very good last year. They were 116th, and a lot of guys are back. They bolstered the unit. They have some recruits that are decent. We'll see. Special teams. This unit was 5th in the country. They do return their kicker, who is pretty good, Emmett Kenny. He was perfect on his extra points. He was 14 of 17 on field goals. His only misses came from beyond 40 yards, and he was actually 7 of 10 on 40-plus yard field goals, and he went 2 of 4 on 50-plus. He was the 18th most efficient kicker in college football. Stanford special team now, same kicker back who was awesome. No real qualms there. Overall, this roster, I think, is a little worse compared to where we saw it at the end of the Taylor era, but not by much. Expectation should be about the same, but as usual, this is going to come down to schedule and who Stanford plays. So let's take a look. First of all, they've got a week 0 game. It's a road trip to Hawaii. Then they have a week 1 bye. So that's why the screen looks a little different. But you've got a road trip to Hawaii, then a road trip to BYU in your first 2 games in non-con. What a weird start to the year. Not to mention, you play Notre Dame in non-conference and San Jose State. I think you're probably going to be 1-3. Maybe 2-2. At worst, you could be 1-3, I guess. You should beat Hawaii, but I don't think San Jose State's a given. Notre Dame's a loss, and BYU's probably a loss, especially with that being in Provo. At the ACC level, they face Miami and SMU. They are dodging Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Louisville, but they play a lot of the middle class. Boston College, Virginia, Florida State, Pitt, North Carolina, and Cal is probably the worst team on your schedule. Currently, we have Stanford at the bottom of the conference in terms of power ratings. We think there's a chance that they win 2 or 3 games. It could be as bad as 1, but I think this team is probably hovering in the 3 or 4 win range. And that's what I'm saying to circle back to getting to the coaching staff, talking about Frank Reich. They say they're conducting a full coaching search next year. Is 3 wins enough to keep Frank Reich in the conversation? And now the answer is probably no, because fans and the coaching staff and the new GM, Andrew Luck, probably have unrealistic expectations. But I mean, this team is projected to win about 3.5 wins. If he wins 4 wins, that is for 4 games, that is technically above expectation. But it's not going to cut it for people that are actually supporting the program. Team is kind of in the wilderness. Just hope that next year Andrew Luck can right the course for this ship, because it is swaying about right now, and I'm not really sure what to expect moving forward. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know who you want to see in the G5. We'll do Oregon State, Washington State next, and then kind of up for grabs. But until then, good luck, everyone. We will see you next time.